Hello ladies and gentlemen, of a video brought to you by Answered. And today's video is going to be about my Iridomyrmex Purpureus and their insanely fast growth. And I'm not saying that because they're growing fairly fast. These things have really took off. It has been a while since I've done a video on these guys because I've been distracted by other stuff, and that video will be linked in the top right corner now, which was released about mid-April, so it's been almost 3 months ago since I've done a video on these. Well, let's do a bit of a quick recap to see how they were on my last video so we can better compare them how they are today. As with all my ants when they come through the post, with the very few exceptions, I kept these in the test tube, and they're just in a simple test tube and outworld setup. Now the reason I do this is because she's got workers, and I put the little outworld to it so I can feed them without overly disturbing the queen. And I do recommend that for anybody that gets a new starter colony, if they've got workers or if the queen's semi-colostral, which means she still needs to go and forage for food before she gets workers. But if we take a quick look into the test tube, you can see that she's got a nice little pile of brood there. She's got a nice little tiny batch of eggs, and she's got about 11 workers, give or take. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. So she arrived to me as a fairly healthy queen with plenty of brood, which is great news because sometimes they have, I'm not sure about Iridomyrmex, but definitely a lot of other ants that I get, especially Camponotus, you put them in the post, they generally eat their brood because of the stress of all the banging around. But this girl seems to be a lot more hardy. She doesn't seem to be overly affected by vibrations and stuff, but I still would recommend putting them on a shelf because she's foundation where she's left alone for a bit. Now I can't remember if it was because of space in the test tube, which I think was probably a factor, or it was because she ran out of water, but I ended up moving her out of this test tube into the Wakooshi, I think it's the medium Saturn nest. Unfortunately, I didn't actually get any footage of me moving them into the Saturn nest, and I think the reason for that is because I did it on the live stream. I can't quite remember. But on my live streams, I do have some other updates on these girls. If you don't watch them, it might be worth checking them out if you want to see what's going on with these girls. But yeah, so I moved them into the Saturn nest, but when they were in the Saturn nest, I noticed the queen stopped laying any brood, and she became very docile, very clumsy, kept on falling over, and generally I was starting to get concerned about her. So when talking to people on my live stream, I think it was there anyway, I made a decision to attach a Wakooshi medium cork nest in there to see if she would fare a little bit better. But I will tell you the truth, guys, I wasn't holding out much hope because when I disturbed the Saturn nest, the queen would run out of the test tubes into the outworld and she'd be very clumsy. And to tell you the truth, that kind of behaviour often to me indicates the queen's not doing too well and she may be on her way out. So it was a bit of a let's deal with this now and let's hope for the best. But anyway, let's see how she's getting on now. Now this is them currently. Now one of the main reasons why I've left her attached to the Saturn, even though I've now attached the nest to it, is because it's a decent sized outworld and the numbers have grown quite significantly and I need the space, and I don't have any spare outworlds currently to deal with these girls because I need quite a fair bit of space now with their numbers. And as you can also see, I've also left the test tubes attached as well. One, because it supplies them with the water that they need, and two, because they've also got space to expand if they need to. But as you can see from this video, they are very active ants. And what I do like, which I didn't film, was that they pile all of their rubbish in the bottom left corner there of the outworld, which makes it very easy to clean up. They are, generally speaking, very clean ants. And as you can also see, they're in the new nest. You know I love a macro shot, and this is the hydration area of the nest, and you can see they've put most of their larvae in there. But check out the colours on the back of the ants, because it's like a rainbowy colour. I think they've got the nickname of rainbow ants, and you can see why, because their abdomens catch the light and it looks beautiful. But as you can see, talking about the brood again, there is a nice healthy pile of larvae there, which is really good news because they had a slight pause while they were in the Saturn nest because they just didn't get on with it. Now I know a lot of people rave about the Saturn nest, but I've tried it with a couple of species and personally I think they're not overly suitable for all. So you need to be mindful and consider what you put into those Saturn nests, because this is the second species that I've put in that haven't done overly great. But as we move into the cork area of this, you can see that's where most of their naked pupae are hiding. But just look at the amount of naked pupae that I've got. There is absolutely tons of it. I mean, and look at that pile of eggs just there. Did you see it? I think I get more focus in it on this video, if not another. But there is a really healthy pile of eggs there as well. So the queen is clearly happier in this nest, and it's also alleviating some of my concerns I had about her being clumsy, being really skittish where she runs into the outworld, because when I disturbed this, she stayed put in this nest as well, which tells me she's a lot happier in a nest than she's in a test tube setup, which is the Saturn nest for you. I think it's really cool as well watching how they organise the brood piles, because I mean, Ant kind of talks about this a lot, how ants tend to organise their larvae in one area, their brood in the other, the eggs in the other. Well, these guys predominantly, because obviously there's some larvae there, they've definitely organised the nest like that, where they've got the separate areas for stuff. But look at those pale workers there. You've got one that's about to come out of pupae stage, you've got one that's coming out and very pale as she's waiting for her exoskeleton to harden. So yeah, she's doing absolutely great. Now, looking at the numbers of these, I would say that in the past 2 to 3 months, I've gone from 11 workers to well over 100 now. So that's nearly 1,000% growth in like 2 to 3 months. That's insanely fast growth, especially for a species of this size. And we're looking at the brood pile that I've got. I would equally say I'm probably going to double that as soon as this brood here that we've currently got mature. What I also find interesting is that they take the food into the nest as well, but like I said, this has obviously still got some meat on it, and that's why they've left it here. But you can see the nest is still relatively clean, and they've been in here for a couple of weeks, I think. I can't remember how long they've been in this nest for, but they do generally take out their rubbish out of the nest, which is great, because I know a lot of ants just leave it in there. But look at those eggs there. There's another big pile of eggs there as well as a pile of eggs just there, which is great news, because it means he's actually going to be growing again, which is good. Because I won't lie, I did get generally scared. Well, scared's probably not the wrong word, but generally concerned that my queen was generally on her way out, because you should have seen her when she was in the Saturn nest. She was just falling over, very clumsy, very docile, slight bit of disturbance, ran out into the outworld. So I'm really pleased that she's picked up, she's laying again, she's got a nice little batch of eggs and stuff like that. And I love these ants. To be fair, I'm falling in love with them because they're really pretty anyway. That batch of eggs is quite big, actually, bigger than I expected. So clearly she's got all the stages of going through, so she's settled down and she's breeding again, or laying eggs again, which is absolutely great news. And what's fairly interesting as well about these, there's another batch of eggs there as well, geez. What's really interesting about these is I can watch these for days. Now, I don't normally do a macro shot for nearly 4 minutes long, which I think this is, when I'm watching. Look at the colours of the queen. Wow, I'm getting distracted again. Because there's not a lot to see. Ants in the nest generally chill out and don't do a lot, but these guys are really active. There's always something going on. If they're not cleaning brood, they're moving from A to another batch of eggs there as well. They're moving from A to B, or they're cleaning the brood, moving it around. You know, it's just really interesting to watch them. And not only that though, your eye keeps getting drawn to the rainbowy colour that's on their bodies, be it the abdomen, which is clearly to be seen on the workers, but the queen's head there, her body as well. You can really see that rainbowy colour shining through. And to tell you the truth, it's absolutely gorgeous. Unfortunately, when they're in the outworld, you don't see this as much. You only tend to see it more when there's direct light on it. And the outworlds that I have don't generally have direct light on it, so you don't really see it as much. But they're still feeding off that bit of roach, as you can see there as well. But they are really pretty ants, and to couple that with their size, which I think is about up to 1 centimetre big, and then their absolutely insane growth rate. But if you think that's crazy, check out the feeding of these as well. And believe it or not, this is an adult male dubia roach. Now, they're not small in themselves, but I only gave them this approximately about 10 hours ago, so you can see how much they've processed it already. Yeah, about 10 hours is fair, I'd say. So you can see how much they've processed it already. Now, they are trying to pull it into the nest. As you can see, they've got to work with the right here, which I think I'll pan to in a second. She's trying to pull her in. It ain't going to fit, guys. You can cut the abdomen off and take that in, but you ain't going to get the rest of it in because it's too big. But anyway, you can see that they've processed it down relatively quickly. Now, these girls don't waste any time. I'd say they're almost like Cara Bearer. As soon as there's some food there, everybody else comes running out to work on it as well. They are very protein hungry. Now, this roach will probably disappear, apart from the rubbish left over, in the next day or two. So that means that I could probably potentially give these a large dubia roach at least every 2 to 3 days, and they will be able to process it. Looking at their brood pile, it might be a bit excessive, so I might give it maybe twice a week, would probably be a bit more reasonable considering their brood pile size. But they are very keen at processing meat, they are very efficient, and they are very good. And I absolutely love watching them do it as well. because it's good to see a large ant process such a food, because a lot of the species, like for example my noders, I used to watch them doing it. She's got a friend to help do with the tug of war, which ain't going anywhere, girls. Yeah, with my noders and stuff, you can see in my Carabera currently, apart from the exception of the majors, you see them swarm it and then slowly but surely take it down. Because these are so big, you can actually see them proper clamping on with their mandibles and pulling it apart, and it's really, really interesting. I've also noticed when they do give them a male, I don't see the wings much, but what I can see here, and as you pan round, they actually process the wings. Now, a lot of ants that I get don't process the wings of the male dubia roaches, but these girls seem to eat that as well. They literally leave nothing to waste. And as you can see going round, they've took a lot of the food in that they've cut off and brought it into the nest for the brood to eat. Now, this is standard, but like I said, what they do, but like I said, how clean it was in the last video of these girls, you can clearly see that they do either process it, eat it all, or take it back outside into rubbish once they're done. But they've clearly taken it over here for the larvae to eat. Now, the larvae don't seem overly interested at the moment, and there's a dubious head as the workers process it. But what's really interesting and cool as well is you can actually see the carbohydrates that I feed them, which is the, I think it's the Antantix sugar snaps, or in this case, I normally call it blue goo because that's what I used for a long while, but this is now green goo. You can see the green goo in their stomach. Now, I always thought previously, I know it's something I've been aware of up to now anyway, but I've always thought that the larvae just eat protein, but clearly I'm wrong. They obviously feed the carbohydrates to the workers as well, as you can clearly see here. But anyway, that's not a major thing, it's just worth noting. So yeah, she's doing really well. I'm really pleased with the progression of this colony. After my worries about the queen, I think that's practically alleviated now, because the queen seems to be doing fine, the colony seems to be doing fine. There's plenty of brood there, there's plenty of eggs, and there's plenty of pupae. So all in all, my meat ants are doing good, but these girls I need to get a new nest for pretty quickly. But what I want to do say is a big thank you to Jack. Now, Jack's teachers approached me and asked me to do a personalised video on him because he's got a really big interest in ants. And as a thank you, he sent me this card. So thank you, Jack. I really appreciate it. It's a great drawing, and this will be in my ant cave for the foreseeable future. Thank you. Well, that's it for today then, guys. I do hope you enjoyed this video. I do love this species, and I think I'm going to have to see some big things, i.e. colony size, from these girls going forward, because they already need a new nest, and I only moved them in that a couple of weeks ago. As always, guys, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for Ants Hood, and anyone that messages me, I generally get back to everybody. So if you've got any questions, please fire away. But I've also got a Patreon page, which you'll find a link to that in the description below if you want to support my channel. But already I've got people that support me, and I want to say a big thank you to them. So that's a big thank you to Adam W, Adrian, Antantix, Anty Matters, David D, Jason W, Paul A, Pavance, PJGrant, and the 530 Ski. But if you check out the tab below this video, I've also got a YouTube membership. So I owe a thank you to Anty Matters, PJGrant, Wakooshi that support my channel that way. And by all means, if you want to support my channel, please hit the link below this video. But anyway, that's it for today then, guys. I do hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing my next one. Bye-bye for now.